never seen anything like it in all my years. It's a strange time. You know, I got into it yesterday. I got bored and I started trolling with Pepe the Frog. I started putting up the frog like with rainbows, saying this seems like a frog that's really into gay rights. Like here's a frog that holding a lemon with a tart face. Like this is a frog that ate a lemon and he's reacting to it. Like how is this all racist? Like how is this like anyone? It's not like all these people that are creating this frog are coordinating. Anyone can make a meme with the frog. And like a lot of the original Feels Good Man cartoons that the guy created, those are applicable too. They're silly. A lot of them are really silly.
Well, I think a lot of it was an intentional troll.
Yes.
So I read a story about Kekistan. You know, I was looking into it, trying to figure out if it was really, you know, the menace to humanity that everybody claims it is, and the story was preposterous. It was it's a magical place where anti-Semites and Jews and atheists and religious people live in harmony, which is like, that's hard to even parse. It's designed to cause your mind to throw an error.
Yeah.
Well, and that is what. So I think this is an excellent thing to talk about because I've been, let's say, identified under many circumstances now with the alt-right. I've been doing every bit of investigation I can into its many manifestations. It's a very confusing place. It's certainly not an organized place. And exactly what it is by no means obvious. And the Kekistan issue is a good case in point because mostly that's like a satirical realm where I don't know what it is. It's defensive humor in some sense. Like, let me give you an example. I gave my father a Kekistani flag about 3 weeks ago, and he's.
Why did you do that?
Well, because he's been following what's happening to me online, you know, and a lot, and I got associated with the frog in a major way, and it's a crazy story, and I won't go into it. But I wore a frog hat on one of my videos that an Indian carver, a Native American carver, had given me, and he had told me that the frog was in their culture a harbinger of environmental instability, because if the water's polluted at all, the frogs die first. So the frog is the creature in their mythology that warns the society that things are out of kilter.
It's the canary in the coal mine.
It's the canary in the coal mine. So I wore this frog hat and I made this video about things being unstable. And I'd been identified with Kermit because my voice sort of sounds like Kermit the Frog. And it actually does. So I've been making jokes about that. And so then I made this video with this frog hat. And the frog that my carver friend made actually had red lips. And then I made the video, and as soon as I posted it, people said, that's Pepe. And I thought, I just about fainted, literally, because it never occurred to me that that was a connection. So anyways, I've been tangled in with this frog thing in this most absolutely insane and surreal manner. But and that got me into the Kekistani thing. And a lot of the people that I'm trying to address online are young men who are pushed, I would say, in a right-leaning direction by the movement of the radical left alienating. And then they're thinking, well, I'm certainly not that.
Right.
Well, then what am I?
Right.
Well, maybe I'm the opposite of that. Well, is the opposite of the radical left the alt-right? Or is there a better opposite? Is there a different opposite that people could flee to? And that's partly that's what I'm trying to figure out. But
does it have to be opposite? Couldn't it just be different?
Well,
and that's the
that's
thing.
a good
is like
question.
Opposition is a real issue with people, right? Like what you were talking about before, when people just ramp up their positions and get more ideologically based, and they're doing it as a reaction to the other side. Instead of just being who they are, instead of having some sort of a personal sovereignty, they're literally reacting to the opposite side and changing who they are.
Yes. So what I've been trying to do with my videos, and I think this is part of the reason that they've become so popular. In fact, I'm certain of it, is that I've been trying to agitate for the adoption of that personal responsibility as an alternative to political ideology. It's like, get your act together, have a vision, straighten out your life, say what you think, stay away from the ideological idiocies and simplicity and oversimplifications, and try to put yourself together, because I do believe at the most fundamental level, and I think this is the remarkable realization of Western civilization, is that the well-developed individual is the antidote to the tyranny of society and biology. I think that's our great discovery in the West. It's not like other cultures haven't had that idea in nascent form, but it's been hyper-developed in the West, and I think it's right. And so we abandon that pathway of divine individuality and revert to ideological identification of race or sex. We're going to tear each other apart. And I think part of the reason we're motivated to do that, Joe, is because many people don't want to bear the responsibility of developing themselves as individuals. So they'll shuffle off the responsibility, and if that means that, we're dancing in the streets because everything's on fire, that'll be just fine. And that's another thing that's adding to the terrible danger that we're in right now. So
I think you're right, and I think that personal auditing program that you're a part of is gigantic, and people look at it as being separate from all these issues that we're dealing with culturally. But I don't think it is. I think you're absolutely right, and I think that there is a real lack of struggle and understanding of struggle with a lot of people today. Not necessarily struggle financially, but I mean like physical struggle, spiritual struggle, understanding that you have to overcome difficult issues to really understand the true potential of your mind and your body.
You have to not only overcome them, but you have to seek them out voluntarily and what would you say, exult in the fact that they exist, right?
Yes.
And that's part of bearing the burden of being. It's like being is a tragic state. Human being is a tragic state. So you can shrink from that. But if you shrink from that, the suffering increases and intensifies, and you become resentful and malevolent.
Yes.
So the alternative is to move forward courageously. That's the dragon motif, right? That's the hero myth, essentially. And that is the pathway forward as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think it also has implications. You're talking about it at the level of what is best for the individual. But we also have a problem, which is that these collectivist movements, whether they are, white nationalists on the right or social justice warriors on the left, they cannot see forward. And what is missing is that actually the mechanism that allows us to discover new ways involves individuals who are capable of thinking independently. And if you have multiple individuals who think independently about related matters, then they can pool that stuff. But if what we do is we force everybody to sign up for the same things that we all agree are true, there's no way of discovering what we don't yet know, because every great idea starts with a minority of one. So we have to have the freedom to be the only person who believes something, and then to compel others that it's somewhere in the right neighborhood, and for others to pick up that mantle. And so by subordinating
that's exactly why free speech has become an ideological issue and increasingly identified with the right, and which is horrible. It's horrifying. But the right justification for free speech is what you just laid out, which is that in order for the collective is a group of what's already known by definition. We inhabit the collective, and that's what's already known, what we can agree on. But the problem with that is that what we can agree on, what's already known, isn't sufficient. We still have problems. So people have to be out at the fringes, on the border between chaos and order, where they discover new things and communicate it back to the collective. And free speech does that. That's the mechanism.
This is also a deep evolutionary truth, which is that all of the innovations that allow, whether we're talking about one creature learning to do some new trick that gives rise to a bunch of species that do the same trick, or whether we're talking about populations discovering a new way to live on Earth, all of these things proceed from the fringe, right? The people at the center for whom things are working best aren't going to be the ones to innovate the new way. It's people for whom things are not quite working that are going to innovate new ways. And that's also true for a population of frogs or birds or plants or whatever. The ones that are not well situated are the ones where an experiment can pay off.
Part of the reason that I've been accused of being on the far right, say, or on the alt-right, is because I've talked with people who perhaps are closer, what would you say, have an association network that might be more closely allied with that than people are comfortable with. But my attitude has been too, and I don't want to talk about this in much detail because it's really complicated, but the anti-left spectrum, let's say, is very confused, and it could easily tilt very rapidly into the hard right anti-left, which is the danger that you were describing. And partly what I'm hoping is that I can talk to people who might conceivably be on that developmental pathway because they're tired of being accused of implicit racism, let's say, and say, look, you can be anti-radical left without falling all the way into the far right, and here's how you might do it. But that means I have to talk to them, and then if I talk to them, that means I risk association with them, and that risks being tainted. It's a very tricky line to walk.
Well, it's also one of the big problems with this hard stance of the left, of the hard left. Like, this Pepe the Frog thing. Like that anybody, I mean, one of the things that I tweeted was some guy that called me, you just admitted you're a Nazi because I posted a meme that someone had created of me as Pepe the Frog. And apparently there's Pepe the Frog of everybody. And so this guy was like, well, you just admitted you're a Nazi. And I'm like, see, this is a part of the problem. And this creates a massive blowback. People are getting angry because that frog, for the most part, is used humorously. And
yeah, actually, you used the phrase defensive humor when we were talking. And it really is. And I think, I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Joe, but
no, please do.
There's something about the idea that the effectiveness of this meme is that it tangles people with no sense of humor in knots. And
and that's a huge part of why those things are generated.
That's why they like it.
That's exactly right.
They love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fearing that I'm saying something about this frog and that there's going to be something that's going to emerge that I should know about, that somehow I'm admitting something. But all I'm saying is what I see is a lot of people using it to taunt people who can't figure out.
Yes, I think that's the vast majority of it. I do believe that. And I think the same thing about the Kekistani types is that that's almost all humor.
Yeah, and there's a massive problem with pushing back against that and calling those people Nazis and racists, and especially when they're just using humor, and especially when it's very clear if you look at all the memes online, and I went thoroughly through Google to find them, there are some abhorrent ones. There are some horrible ones. There are some ones that are with Nazi uniforms. There's some anti-Jew ones. There's some horrific ones. Most of them are not that. Most of them. The vast majority of them are humorous. And again, these people are not coordinating. So if one person decides to make a Mickey Mouse racist meme, which, by the way, a lot of the early Mickey Mouse cartoons, you could just take a screenshot, and they're fucking tremendously racist.
Right.
Because dealing with the sign of the times. I mean, images of black people that were extremely cartoonish. You know, giant lips, black faces, the whole deal. Horribly racist. You could say Mickey Mouse is fucking racist. Don't go to Disneyland. No one's saying that, right? But they could. And this is the slippery slope. You start with the frog, you know? And, you know, first they came for Pepe, and I didn't say anything.
Yeah, well, if the frog is racist, you start wondering what isn't racist.
Exactly.
Because it's a bloody
racist.
Cartoon frog.
Well, you can make a cartoon about everything that has ever existed and make that racist. It doesn't mean that the frog is racist. This is where it's crazy. It's like, what percentage of people are making the frog racist? And then for the Southern Poverty Law Center to say that this is a symbol of hate now, this frog. Well, guess what? You just back these fucking people up against the wall and you shored their offenses because now they're realizing, oh, well, these people are mad. They're not just mad like angry, but mad, like insane. Like, you're not looking at this thing rationally at all. You're saying that a frog, where 99% of the memes are just humorous or silly, now the frog is a hate symbol.
Not only a hate symbol, but Nazi. White supremacist. Yeah. I mean, they're just drying up all of the space between their preposterous perspective and the nightmare at the other end of the spectrum. And the point is, almost all of us live in that intermediate space.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's
almost all thoughts live in that intermediate space.
Right.
And there's a variability of all thoughts, you know, and there's flexibility of all ideas. And when you're talking about something where it's extremely humorous, you're talking about a humorous frog. I mean, goddamn, to call that all hate when sometimes it's hate. And by who? By whoever the fucking people are that did that hateful thing. Those are the people that are hateful, not the other ones that are using that frog for humor. I mean, this is the fact that this is an argument at all just shows how lost we are in these ideological arguments, this left versus right, extreme end of the spectrum, on one end of the field throwing rocks at the far end of the field.
Yeah, it's
most of us are in the middle somewhere.
It's hopeless if we cannot have discussions
about
in the
a
middle.
frog.
Yeah, about a cartoon frog.
A cartoon frog.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ.